The box on my doormat weighed less than a pound, but when I lifted it, my home felt suddenly lighter, like somebody had already taken the walls. Father's Day, June 15th. Evanston air warm and grassy, my name written in my daughter's looping hand, a little heart dotting the I. "Don't open it. Can't you see?" My wife called from the kitchen without even drying her hands, eyes sliding to the chain on the door and then to the brass keys hanging on my hook. I slit the tape anyway with my thumb. "Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from." Inside, something mean smiled back at me. A brand new smart lock, still in molded cardboard, a sticker on the faceplate that read, "Temporary code 0615. A ceramic mug, world's former, dead in smug blue letters, a USB drive tucked into bubble wrap, and a photocopy of a quitclaim deed showing my name signed in a line smoother than my hand has been in 20 years. I don't sign a J like that, not since the knuckle surgery. The notary seal read S. Hargrove expires 02 to 2026, stamped 6/9. A Sunday. Marielle's voice flattened. "Jerry, don't escalate." She said it like the hot pan might jump if I spoke too loud. "It's a gesture. Lena's reorganizing." "Reorganizing what?" I asked, but the question already knew an answer. This house was my retirement. Every receipt in the drawer my little pension. I photographed everything like a man building a raft. The torn flap, the shipping label, June 14th, 3:52 p.m., Ravenswood Hub. The inside packing slip with a tiny line. At the bottom, fulfillment courtesy of Ryan's LLC. I set the paper on a placemat and felt the old dining table's groove under my palm, the one I gouged in '98 when I installed these cabinets by hand. The USB looked cheap, like a toy that could still hurt you. I plugged it into my old laptop and clicked the single file. My voice came out of the speakers. Only it wasn't mine. "Be gone by Monday," it said. Cold and clipped, like a bad actor reading a grocery list. The room behind the voice had the wrong hum. The refrigerator tone drops out at 22 seconds, comes back at 26 like somebody coughed and forgot to cut twice. "Performative," Mariel said, jaw tightening. "Don't make this worse." I pinched the bridge of my nose and tasted metal. The mug wobbled in my hand and tapped the sink with a sound that felt like the first crack in a windshield. I opened the ledger drawer. ComEd, 118.44 due July 3rd. Water bill stamped paid in May. Property tax receipt from March 1st. Paper still. Says what it says, even when people don't. My phone buzzed at 6:02 p.m. A text from Lena. "Please don't make this hard, Dad. Ryan's got the title office lined up for Wednesday. We're just simplifying things. You'll love it." I held the photocopied deed to the window. My signature had no stagger at the downstroke, no little hitch where the J should hook twice. And that Sunday date. Notary offices love calendars. Courts do too. I slid the USB into the top right desk drawer and reached for the folder that always sits behind it. The plastic sleeve with our original deed. The one I've moved from apartment to condo to bungalow like a passport. The space was blank. Empty dust rectangle on the wood. I looked at the smart lock again, the numbers 0615 staring like a pre-written punchline. "Don't open it," Mariel had said. Too late. The truth was already unboxed, and it wasn't the start of anything. It was the middle of a story somebody else thought they could finish without me. "Okay," I said to the empty drawer. "Will he do it on paper?" The chipped rim of that former Dad mug made a small embarrassed sound against the sink, like it knew what it was saying about me. The light had gone syrup thick in the kitchen, June 15th, early evening, and the bungalow felt like someone else had already measured it for new furniture. I walked the house the way I used to walk job sites, hand on door frames, counting quiets. The front closet door settled with that familiar stutter at the hinge. The basement steps sighed. In my office, the top right drawer gaped like a missing tooth where the deed folder should have been. Marielle stood against the counter, arms folded, the way you fold a map you don't plan to follow. Lena is trying to think ahead, she said. Ryan can stabilize the property. He has contacts. Contacts that mail smart locks? I asked. The sticker on the faceplate, temporary code 0615, caught the overhead light and flashed back. At me. Father's Day baked into 4 digits. I took a breath and it whistled at the back of my throat. I don't wheeze, I calculate. But grief made an accountant out of my lungs. I pulled the ledger drawer all the way out and set it on the table. My life itemized. Comed $118.44 for due July the 3rd. Water bill with the blue paid bar in May. The property tax receipt stamped March 1st. The appraisal from 98 with my scribble in the margin where I noted oak cabinets, handmade. I smoothed the electric bill and underlined the date with my thumb. Every receipt was my pension, and someone had tried to cash it without me. My phone lit the table grain at 6:02 p.m. Lena, please don't make this hard, Dad. Ryan's got the title office lined. Up for Wednesday. We're simplifying. You'll love it. I read it twice, then again, as if the third time the words might apologize. I typed, erased, typed, erased. I finally wrote, we'll talk when I have all the papers. Bring originals. The dots appeared, then disappeared. Nothing came back. I poured coffee and tasted nickels. Panic has a coin flavor. My eyes drifted to the brass keys on the hook by the door, the ones with the little green paint fleck from when Lena was 6, and I let her help. Paint the fence. If they swapped the lock while I was at Menard's picking up screws, my own face would be a stranger to my own porch. The picture sat there until it stood up and walked around the room. I pulled a receipt from the ledger. 189, last fall's rekey after the break-in 2 blocks down. You're being theatrical, Marielle said when I set it beside the smart, locked like 2 chess pieces staring each other down. We don't have to turn this into a court thing. People who plan to be honest don't need a Sunday notary, I said. She flinched the way people flinch when a mirror catches them from the side. Just don't make Lena choose. Then she set her phone face down on the counter and went to the sink. The phone lit anyway. A rectangle of summer lightning. The counter buzzed. She didn't turn it over. The house got very quiet in the way houses do when they're listening. The refrigerator hummed, the real one, steady. I thought of the USBs. Hum dropping out like a skipped heartbeat. I pulled the drive from the desk and wrapped it in a paper towel like it could leak, then tucked it into a sandwich bag. It wasn't evidence yet. It was intention. I sat at the dining table and made a list on the back of an old Menard's receipt. Attorney, Asher.neighbor Gabe, confirmed delivery times. Notary, Hargrove's Journal, title office. Any pre-clear. Letters, backup locksmith, Ray.cameras, doorbell footage, street view, make a paper wall. I called Asher at 6:28 p.m. Her voicemail came on. She was in court until Tuesday. I left my voice there like a pressed flower. A box with a smart lock and a forged quitclaim. Date says 6/9, Sunday USB with a voice cut. The original deed folder is missing from my desk. I'll pay your retainer. Just tell me what to document. I set the phone down and felt a wobble in the floor that wasn't the floor. I opened the freezer, found the old roast I'd been saving for a Sunday that felt earned, and set it on the counter to defrost. Stupid, maybe, but I wanted the house to hear normal sounds, too. Oven door, timer click, faucet hiss. The world was still a place where you could roast meat and pay a light bill and not be replaced by a letterhead. At 8:11 p.m., the doorbell cam pinged my phone with a spider crawling through the corner of the lens. I watched the footage anyway, like a man who watches the horizon for smoke. Nothing. Just the brown line sighing past in the distance, and the neighbor kid wheeling by on a bike with a baseball card ticking his spokes. Before bed, I gathered the receipts into a neat fan and slid a rubber band around them. I put the smart lock back in its box and wrote across the lid in a Sharpie, "Return to sender after court." Marielle brushed her teeth in silence, spit, and said to the mirror, "Just sleep. You're making a story where there doesn't have to be one." "In stories," I said, "the dates don't lie." I set my phone alarm for 5:45 a.m., put a notebook and pen on the table, and left the porch light on. The house looked back at me, steady and squared like a thing that knows what it is. I didn't sleep much. At first light, I made coffee strong, enough to stand a spoon, and cracked the door to let the cool in. Somewhere on the block, a newspaper thumped a step. My nerves flickered into something else, resolve wearing work boots. I was ready to count, ready to measure, ready to build. And then came the knock. 2 soft taps, mail carrier rhythm. Gabe. The knock came at dawn, 3 taps spaced like punctuation. When I opened the door, Gabe stood there in his postal windbreaker, even though he'd been retired 2 years. "I saw the driver yesterday," he said, nodding toward the stoop. "That box got scanned twice." He lifted his smartwatch and scrolled. 3:41 p.m. truck idle, 3:52 door photo. Doesn't happen by accident. "Twice?" I asked. "First scan was a test. Somebody wanted to be sure it showed up delivered before it hit your porch." The morning light spilled gold across the entryway. My porch cam had a single LED glow at 3:50. And Gabe's timing matched. He tapped the doorbell frame. "See that? Motion went off 2 minutes before the delivery photo. Your wife opened the door, looked down, stepped back in." He shrugged, not unkindly. "She knew it was coming." I poured him coffee, black. "She told me not to open it," I said. Maybe she didn't mean the box. That landed somewhere. I didn't like. When he left, I took my notebook and drew a line down the page. 2 columns, what I have and what I need. Under have, shipping label, forged deed copy, USB, smart lock, Lena's text. Under need, notary record from Hargrove, title office visitor log, metadata from USB, video proof from shipping hub. I pinned the paper to the wall with a thumbtack and stood back. Asher's voicemail still hadn't changed. Court through Tuesday. So I moved to step 2, higher eyes. My buddy Ralph once used a PI to chase down a contractor who stole copper wire from a job site. "Quiet guy, doesn't overcharge," he'd said. That's how I found Luis. At 11:06 a.m., I sent the transfer, $3,000, retainer, and texted him the situation. His reply came 3 minutes later. "I'll pull exterior cams around the Ravenswood hub. Send me any serial numbers." I flipped the box over and found the tracking code burned into the cardboard. Sent it. Then added, "Check a notary named Hargrove." Date stamp Sunday, June 9th. He texted back, "That's already weird. Notaries don't stamp Sundays." I opened my laptop and replayed the USB audio, this time wearing headphones. My voice said, "Be gone by Monday," again, but in the background there was an air conditioning hum that cut off halfway through, like someone hit pause on the room. I scribbled ambient mismatch 22's mark. Proof of splice. At noon I bought 2 AirTags, $49.99 at the Apple Store off Dempster, and slipped them into empty moving boxes labeled winter coats. One in the front closet, one under my bed. If anyone moved my life again, I'd watch it travel. By afternoon, Gabe texted me a still image from his porch cam across the street. Ryan, 2 days before Father's Day, loitering by my mailbox holding a manila envelope. Timestamp June 13th, 5:47 p.m. I printed it and pinned it to the wall beside Lena's card. "We're making things simple, Dad." At 4:12, Asher finally texted back between hearings, "Sunday stamp, fraud flag. Don't confront. Document everything." I replied with a photo of the box lid scrawled, "Return to sender after court." Evening light fell through the blinds in stripes like notebook paper. I circled the smart lock sticker 0615, the date of Father's Day, and wrote beside it, "Premeditated." The box wasn't random. It was the keyhole in a door I didn't know I'd been locked out of. At 9:37 p.m., Luis sent me a 10-second clip from a Ravenswood dock camera. Ryan, baseball cap pulled low, paying cash, handing a small box to a clerk who slapped my name on the label. Clear as a confession, only quieter. I sat at the table staring at the screen until the playback looped. Then I printed it frame by frame, taped each page to the wall, and whispered the only thing that made sense. We start here, because that's what you do when your life becomes evidence. You label the shelves and keep counting. By Thursday, June 20th, I'd turned my dining room into a small war room, paper-taped wall-to-wall like insulation, receipts pinned under magnets, dates circled in red ink. The smell of printer toner had replaced the smell of coffee. I was a contractor again, only this time the job was my own life. I rode the brown line downtown wearing my oldest windbreaker, the one that makes me invisible. People see an older man with steady eyes and think, harmless. That helps. At superior title, the lobby reeked of lemon polish and fake smiles. I approached the receptionist and asked for a record of any pre-clear or pending transfer, tied to my parcel. Her smile froze halfway. "Oh, you were just here earlier this week." Then her face corrected itself like an autosave. "Sorry, sir, must have been someone else." I logged the moment on my notepad. June 20th, 10:32 a.m., receptionist slip. Asha met me in the lobby, all navy blazer and crisp words. We sat on a marble bench where sunlight striped across the floor like a barcode. She examined the photocopy of the forged deed I'd shown her. "Your signature's too smooth," she said, tapping the curve of the J. "Also, this notary's journal will have to show you in person on June 9th. She looked up. "That was a Sunday, Jerry. Notaries don't stamp on Sundays. Judges love calendars." Her voice steadied me. We went to the courthouse cafe for coffee and talked strategy. "If they're planning to record this transfer," she said, "we can file a temporary restraining order. It freezes the deed until a hearing." I nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Proof you still occupy and maintain the property. Utility bills, tax receipts, maybe a sworn statement." "From a neighbor. That afternoon I gathered my evidence like bricks. ComEd bill 118.44, water bill paid May 12th, property tax receipt March 1st, Gabe's written statement. I see Mr. Kearns collect his mail daily, mow his own lawn. At 2 p.m. we met again at her office. She flipped through each document and slid them into a binder labeled Motion Binder, Kearns. Her paralegal affixed a bright blue tab, Exhibit A, Occupancy Proof. I almost smiled. Paper may not hug you, but it'll stand beside you in court. Leaving the office, I walked to City Hall and pulled public records. Ryan's LLC had 2 active code enforcement fines, unpermitted work totaling $1,250. A crooked hand can't draw. Straight lines. I photocopied them, paid $12 for certified copies, and slipped them behind Exhibit B. Then I scheduled an independent appraisal, $450, for the next day to document the house's current condition. If they claimed improvements, I'd have proof. That evening the sun slid down over Evanston like cooling steel. I grilled a sandwich, sat at my table, and flipped through my notes. My house was still mine, but only because paper said, and so I ran my finger down the margin where Asha had written TRO hearing July 2nd, a date that sounded both far and close. At 11:43 p.m., my phone chimed. AirTag movement detected. The dot on my map pulsed, front closet box leaving my bungalow, traveling west then north. It stopped in Lincoln Square, 2 blocks from Ryan's address. My throat went cold. I clicked the map open, watched the blue. Got blink steady at North Levitt Avenue and whispered, "You picked up the wrong box, son." Downstairs the house creaked like it wanted to get involved. I shut off every light but the one over the table, where my notes glowed pale. Then I underlined tomorrow's task. Locksmith, rekey, receipt. They'd sent a box to erase me. I was building one to trap them. The next morning started with the sound of metal against metal, my front door handle rattling while I buttered toast. For half a breath, I thought I'd imagined it. Then the latch shifted, slow and deliberate. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, the cast-iron skillet from the stove, and stepped into the hallway. Marielle stood inside the doorway, keys dangling from her hand like earrings. "Relax," she said, her tone somewhere between guilt and scolding. I was checking the spare set. I stared at the smart lockbox I'd duct-taped to the wall, evidence label facing out. "You're being theatrical," she added. "Theatre ends," I said. "Deeds don't." She didn't answer, just dropped the keys onto the console table and walked away. The sound of them landing felt louder than it should have. At 9:17 a.m., Luis called. "Got your notary," he said. "Hargrove notarized 11 documents the week of June 9th, none on Sunday." He sent over a scan of the commission card. "Office hours, Monsat. Closed Sundays." "Also," he added, "that Sunday stamp on your deed. Ink formula's newer than it should be. Different batch. Someone used a replacement stamp pad." I thanked him and hung up. Each fact was a nail in a board I was finally cutting to size. Gabe stopped by around noon, a manila envelope tucked under his arm. "Caught something you'll like," he said, handing me a doorbell cam still from his house. "Ryan, 12:07 a.m. last night. He walked up your porch steps, looked straight at your light fixture and pointed a flashlight at it. Then he walked away. He was testing the cameras," I muttered. "Yeah," Gabe said, "and he found the wrong one." We sat in silence a moment. Then he handed me a slip of paper, his written statement for Asha's binder, signed and dated. "In case it helps your lawyer," he said, and left me standing in my own living room that smelled faintly of toast gone cold. Around 3:30 p.m., I printed every text Lena had sent me since the box arrived. 17 messages, all variations of love twisted into leverage. "Ryan says it's just a formality. You'd do this if you cared about my future. Don't overthink this. Paperwork only." I highlighted the one that cut deepest. "If you love me, help me get ahead." I stared at that line a long time before replying. "Bring the original deed to dinner Sunday. We'll formalize." With my lawyer present, it took me 15 minutes to write those 13 words, another 10 to press send. Asha approved the message word for word. "Keep her talking," she'd said. "We need them to hand you something tangible." That evening, she stopped by after work with the latest draft of the TRO motion, now set for July 2nd. Her paralegal clipped a blue binder tab to the top labeled Kearns, Exhibits A through D, my dining table, once a place for birthdays. And crossword puzzles had turned into a legal trench. After she left, I opened the USB again. I listened through the fake conversation, my voice ordering Lena to leave the house, and focused on the details. At the word June 17, my supposed voice lacked the faint hiss that my dentures always add. Asha had called it a splice. She was right. I replayed that second a dozen times, each loop tightening the knot in my chest. At 10:42 p.m., I took a photo of my wall. Paper sheets, strings of twine, and the phrase I'd written, in red above it all. "Every line leaves a shadow." I texted it to Asha with a single caption, "Ready for Sunday." The house was still. The refrigerator hummed steady, the real one this time. I checked the porch one last time before bed. Across the street, Gabe's porch light blinked once. Quiet code between neighbors who know a storm's coming. The TRO date, July 2nd, was circled in red on my calendar. But first, Sunday dinner, and if I played it right, they'd bring their own evidence straight to my table. Sunday came soaked in that heavy June 29th rain, the kind that smells like metal and memory. I'd been awake since 5, watching drops. Thread down the window, each one cutting through my reflection. The house looked staged, roast chicken in the oven, silverware lined in military rows, candles unlit but ready. I'd set an old tape recorder, Luis's, on the dining shelf, red light blinking faint under the table edge. It was rolling before the doorbell rang. When Lena and Ryan walked in, the air changed. She smelled of designer perfume. He of car. wax and borrowed confidence. Marielle followed behind them, drying her hands on a towel like we were having just another family meal. I caught the flicker of something rehearsed in her eyes. "Hey, Dad," Lena said, voice bright but brittle. "We thought we'd do this face to face, no confusion." I poured water into glasses. "Confusion usually hides in paperwork," I said. Ryan smiled, that practiced half-tilt. "We just need your final signature on this." He slid a manila envelope across the table, its flap damp from the rain. Inside, a fresh quitclaim deed, same forged smooth signature, same fake notary, and a welcome letter from Superior Title announcing ownership update effective July 3rd. They'd even misspelled my street, Blaine Avenue instead of Blaine Street. "Sloppy." "Funny," I said. "How paperwork travels faster than Father's Day cards." Lena's voice went soft, pleading. "Dad, it's just restructuring. Ryan can help refinance. We'd all be secure." Marielle laid my original deed folder on the table like an offering. "Found it behind the file cabinet," she said. "The plastic sleeves were spotless, no dust, no bent tabs. We're consolidating, Jerry." That word again, consolidating, like I was inventory. I nodded slowly. "Then let's consolidate properly." I reached under the table, pressed the tiny recorder button again, just to be sure, and set it in plain sight. The red light glowed. "Between us." "Go ahead, Ryan," I said. "Explain the smart lock code to me. 0615, ring any bells?" His jaw tightened. "You're paranoid, old man." "Try me." He exhaled through his nose. "It's the install date, that's all." "Install date," I repeated. "On Father's Day, the same day you mailed me a forged deed and a USB with my edited voice telling my daughter to get out of my house." Marielle's fork clinked against her plate. "Jerry, don't," I said, turning to her. "You told me not to open the box. Now I know why. You didn't want the evidence breathing." For a second, nobody moved. The only sound was rain tapping the window. Lena's face collapsed between guilt and panic. "You recorded us?" I tilted my head. "No, you recorded me. I'm just pressing play." I thumbed the recorder. It replayed the last 20 seconds. Ryan's voice saying, "Install date." Clear as daylight. His eyes widened. Marielle's hand covered her mouth. "I'm not angry," I said, standing, "but you should know something about builders. We keep copies of every blueprint." I reached for my phone and typed a single word to Asha. "Ready." The smell of roast chicken thickened, heavy with irony. I let it burn a little. Lena began to cry softly. "Dad, please, we just—" I held up a hand. "Don't finish that sentence. Lawyers like complete thoughts." At 8:12 p.m., I excused myself to use the bathroom, stepped onto the porch and watched the rain slick the streetlights. Asha's reply flashed on my phone. "Got it. TRO filing confirmed for July 2nd. We'll move fast." Inside, their voices. Rose, muted behind the glass, arguing in the language of people who've just realized the stage lights are on. I pocketed the recorder, let the storm do the applause, and whispered to the night, "Curtains up." The Cook County Chancery courtroom buzzed like a refrigerator, low, constant, the kind of sound that seeps into your bones. It was July 11, 2 weeks since that dinner, and the walls felt both sterile and holy. I'd never been in court before. 38 years of measuring drywall had taught me to settle things with handshakes and signatures. But this wasn't a construction job anymore. This was demolition by paperwork. Asha stood beside me, motion binder open, her posture straight as a beam. Lena sat 3 rows ahead, eyes rimmed red. Ryan fidgeted beside her, tugging his tie loose. Marielle was there too, quiet in the corner, sunglasses perched on her head, though we were indoors. When the clerk called Kearns versus Kearns et al., the sound was heavier than I'd expected. Asha rose first. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Jerry Kearns, seeks an emergency order restraining any attempted property transfer on his Evanston home, pending verification of a forged quitclaim deed." The judge, a woman with grey hair pulled, tight and reading glasses halfway down her nose, nodded. Proceed. Asher started with the one thing every builder respects: the calendar. Your Honor, the deed in question is dated Sunday, June 9th, Notary Public Samuel Hargrove's office. Is closed on Sundays, by his own posted hours. Here's his commission card. She slid an enlarged printout onto the bench. We also have verification from the Illinois Secretary of State that no remote notarizations were filed that day. Ryan's attorney tried to object, but she waved him off. Let her finish, Asher continued. We have an audio recording delivered in a Father's Day package, allegedly containing Mr. Kearns' voice demanding his daughter vacate his home. Forensic comparison shows splicing and ambient inconsistencies at the 22-second mark. She clicked play. My fake voice filled the courtroom. Be gone by Monday. The judge's brow lifted slightly. Then Asha played a live clip she'd recorded of me responding to a question that morning at the clerk's window. Note the absent sibilance, she said. Mr. Kearns wears partial dentures. His natural voice includes a distinct hiss on S sounds. The fake does not. The judge leaned closer. Noted. Next came Luis's footage, a short clip from the Ravenswood shipping hub showing Ryan in a baseball cap, sliding a small box. Across the counter, cash in hand, the clerk stamped the label, my name, my address. Ryan's fingers brushing the cardboard edge, Asher's tone never rose above polite precision. Your Honor, this is the box that contained the forged deed, the edited audio, and the smart lock pre-programmed with code 0615, the date of Father's Day. The judge looked at Ryan. Why would a Father's Day gift include a lock with that code? Ryan shifted, jaw clenching. Coincidence. Asher smiled faintly. Coincidences don't ship with tracking slips. Then came Gabe's affidavit, his neat cursive projected on the screen. Saw package delivered twice scanned, June 14th, 3:41 and 3:52 p.m. Wife, Mariel Kearns, observed porch prior to delivery. Gabe's doorbell footage followed, showing the timestamp glow and Marielle peeking through the door before the driver arrived. Marielle finally spoke, voice careful. I didn't know what was in it. I just didn't want Jerry to overreact. Asher countered gently. You told him, quote, don't open it, can't you see? Marielle's silence confirmed more than denial ever could. The judge flipped through the binder, pausing on the superior title welcome letter, the one that misspelled my street. So this was sent before the property was legally transferred? She asked. Asher nodded. Dated June 25th, Your Honor, 8 days before Mr. Kearns' daughter and her husband hosted him for dinner under pretense of signing documents. Ryan's lawyer tried again. This is a family simplification, Your Honor. Miscommunications, not misconduct. The judge raised an eyebrow. A family simplification involving forged deeds, false notarization, and a fake audio recording? She set the paper down. That's not simplification. That's fraud wrapped in sentiment. She signed her order with a single decisive stroke. Temporary restraining order granted. Any further attempts to transfer the property are hereby void pending full investigation. She looked at Asher. Submit the notarized exhibit list by tomorrow. I'm also referring Hargrove to the State Bar for review. Asher thanked her. I tried to breathe. As the gavel rapped, Ryan muttered something sharp under his breath. Lena flinched. Mariel turned toward me, lips parting like she might speak, but didn't. She just lowered her sunglasses and walked out first. In the hallway afterward, Asher clasped my shoulder. That's step one. Paper holds. They can't touch your title. Now, I nodded, staring at the grey linoleum tiles. What about the USB? Chain of custody's in motion, she said. State's attorney will handle forgery. I caught my reflection in a glass panel. Older, steadier, maybe smaller, but still standing. Behind us, Lena whispered something to Ryan that I couldn't. Here, then looked up at me. For a second I saw the kid who used to stand on my boots while I measured window trim. Her mouth trembled like she was trying to say sorry, but the words wouldn't clear her throat. As we walked out into the sun, the city noise returned. Horns, footsteps, pigeons. The courthouse steps gleamed wet from a morning shower. "You did it," Asha said quietly. "No," I said. "I documented it." The difference mattered, because revenge wasn't always about winning. Sometimes it was just about getting the record corrected. Justice doesn't arrive with sirens or fireworks. It prints quietly, in 12-point font. 2 mornings after the hearing, Asha slid an envelope across her desk toward me. Inside was a fresh court order, the ink still smelling of toner. Deed declared void ab initio. Property transfer attempts restrained pending investigation. The paper itself looked ordinary, just black words on white stock, but I swear it hummed. Asha leaned back, half smiling. "They'll open a review into the forged audio and notary misconduct. Hargrove's license is already suspended, pending the outcome." I exhaled. For the first time in weeks, my hands didn't shake. Back home, the house felt different, lighter, like the walls had loosened their grip just enough for me to breathe again. I called Ray the locksmith at 3:10 p.m., the same man who'd saved the neighborhood after last fall's break-ins. "Rekey everything," I said. "Every hinge, every latch, every whisper of metal." He came within the hour. 118 hours. I watched him twist the final cylinder and hand me the new keys. "Keep the old ones?" he asked. "No," I said, dropping them into his palm. "Some memories don't deserve spares." When he left, I installed the smart lock from the Father's Day box. Same model, same code. But now the digits 0615 belonged to me. I pressed each number slowly, click, 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 and felt the small thrill of reclaiming a symbol. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about repossession. The next day, Asha forwarded an email. Hargrove's notary journal, subpoenaed and scanned. There was no entry for June 9th. Instead, his records jumped from June 8th to June 10th, a Sunday-shaped hole sitting right in the middle. She added a note. "That missing page? It'll bury them." At night, I sat at the kitchen table and framed the ComEd bill that had anchored me through all of it. 118.44, due July 3rd. I hung it behind the pantry door where nobody else would look. Not art, just proof that I'd never stopped paying to stay. Then came Lena's text, a long one, the kind that reads like it's been rewritten 6 times. "Dad, I didn't mean for it to go that far. Ryan said it was just temporary." I panicked. "I'll apologize when I can face you." I stared at it, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't let her rewrite the story either. So I attached a photo of the court order and typed 6 words. Boundaries, or love with a spine. Then I hit send. Muriel packed that night. No shouting, no speeches. She filled a single suitcase, folded each blouse perfectly, then said, "This looks bad, Jerry, for all of us." I said, "Truth always looks bad to liars." She blinked once, then left her ring in the soap dish. I watched her tail lights fade. Toward Oak Park, and for the first time since Father's Day, I slept through the night. 2 mornings later, the state's attorney called Asha to confirm they'd opened a criminal review into the forged deed and audio evidence. "They won't likely prosecute family unless it's egregious," Asha said, "but this might qualify." I didn't care about jail, I cared about record. By July 15th, the case file had a new label, Kearns vs. Ryan et al., active investigation. My name first, not last. That afternoon I sat in my rekeyed house, sunlight cutting through the blinds. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the oven, felt honest again. No hidden edits, no splices in the air. On my kitchen counter sat the motion binder, its blue tab catching the light. I opened it once more just to feel the heft. Inside was every piece of paper that had tried to erase me, and every page that had brought me back. When I closed it, the sound was soft but final. Justice hadn't shouted. It had whispered, "You were right," and sometimes that whisper is louder than any gavel. The morning after the final filing, I woke to the smell of rain on asphalt and the hum of a world that had stopped trying to push me out of it. July 16th, Evanston. Quiet, lawn wet, sky low. I brewed coffee strong enough to wake the old ghosts, then stepped outside with my cup. The street looked smaller, but steadier. I started the mower at 7:30 a.m., the first real chore I'd done for myself in months. Each pass across the grass felt like reclaiming lines in a map someone else had tried to redraw. The smell of cut grass. It was better than any therapy. I thought about Lena, at 6 years old, paintbrush in her hand, streaking green across the fence while I pretended not to mind. I thought about Ryan's first handshake, that firm but empty kind you feel only in your palm, not your gut. Mostly, though, I thought about silence, how I'd trained everyone for years to mistake my quiet for surrender. Turns out silence was just my filing system. Inside, I cleared the table of papers, keeping only what mattered. I stacked the motion binder beside the photo albums, labeled the spine with a Sharpie. Summer 25, kept. It looked good there, between Lena's graduation and house remodel 1998. I ran a thumb down the spine and whispered, "That's where you belong, old man, among the things worth keeping." After lunch, I sat down to write a letter. To Lena, not an apology, not a lecture, just a record, like everything else. June 14th. You mailed a box. June 15th, I opened it. June 16th, I started counting. July 11th, a judge saw through the lies. July 15th, the locks turned in my hand again. Then I added one more line. When you're ready for truth, the porch light is on. When you're ready for ownership, the porch is not. I signed it simply, Dad, and slid the letter into an envelope. No return address. Just a date and the old family address she already knew. I didn't send it right away. Some lessons have to wait until people grow into them. Later that afternoon, I dropped by Gabe's place with a box of jelly donuts. He was already sitting on his stoop, mailbag beside him, even though he hadn't carried one in 2 years. "Looks like you beat the mail again," he said, taking a bite. "I just wanted to say thanks," I told him. He pointed his donut at me like a teacher with chalk. People think paper is boring until it saves their life. We sat there watching the brown line rattle across the distance, that old Chicago rhythm, a sound that meant continuity, not chaos. For the first time since Father's Day, I felt aligned with something larger than the mess. That night, I opened every window in the house. Let the air move through. The curtains breathed in and out like lungs, learning how to work again. I looked around at the photos, Marielle smiling, Lena at 10, the three of us in front of the porch we built. It didn't sting anymore, just reminded me how fast people can forget who built the foundation beneath their feet. When I finally sat down, I opened my notebook, same one where I'd written the first list, to get. Now, I made a new one. To keep my house, my peace, my paper trail, my boundaries, I closed it, slid it into the drawer and smiled. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Asher's email subject line. Final hearing confirmed, July 25th. One more stamp and the law would say what? The walls already knew. I looked at the porch light through the window, glowing steady. I didn't turn it off. Some lights aren't for seeing your way out. They're for helping you recognize home when you make it back. The courthouse air was cold that July 25th morning, the kind that makes even truth feel heavy. Asha and I sat in the second row of courtroom 1408, while the clerk flipped pages that decided fates. When our turn came, it was over almost before it began. The judge's voice was flat, businesslike. Quit claim, deed void. Transfer attempts barred. Costs taxed to respondents. She tapped her pen once. Notary Hargrove referred for disciplinary review. 6 minutes after 6 weeks of hell. The gavel sounded less like a bang and more like the closing of a file drawer. Outside, the heat was brutal, shimmering off the concrete in waves. Asha adjusted her blazer and smiled the smallest smile. "You're free of them," she said. "Not free," I corrected. "Documented." She laughed softly. "Fair enough." We parted at the courthouse steps. She had another case. I had a life to return to. The brown line hummed overhead as I walked toward the station, each steel clatter like punctuation. The story was ending its sentence. Back home, a different silence met me, clean, not tense. The dining table still carried the faint scratches from my paper wall, ghost outlines of taped exhibits and legal pads. I ran my hand across them like braille. That table had held more truth than any courtroom. A few hours later, an email from Mariel's attorney landed in my inbox. Proposed separation agreement attached. No alimony request, just a division of assets. Furniture, car, small savings account. I read it twice, not out of shock, but relief. She wanted distance, not damage. Fair trade, I muttered and signed it. She got the copper pots she'd never seasoned. I kept the dining table, the one that had carried both Sunday dinners and subpoenas. Around sunset, I noticed Ryan's truck parked on the street 2 blocks away. For sale sign taped to the windshield, phone number written too big. The irony made me chuckle out loud. "Guess foreclosure looks good on everyone," I murmured. I hadn't heard from Lena in a week. Her last post online was a Father's Day brunch photo, captioned "Fresh Starts." The comments section had turned on her, strangers quoting headlines about forged family deeds. I didn't comment. Let the internet do what karma couldn't. That evening, I wrote a short note to Ray the locksmith, the man who'd saved my locks twice. I enclosed a $750 cashier's check and a message. For the times I didn't say thank you loud enough. I dropped it in the mailbox with a small smile. Some debts are worth overpaying. Then I went on Canva. Yes, even old men learn new tricks, and designed a simple plaque for the foyer. No gold lettering, no pretense, just walnut wood engraved with one line. This house wasn't given. It was. Kept I ordered it for pickup, next day delivery. Something about putting words on wood felt right, permanent, like carving gratitude into the frame of a home that refused to fall. When night came, I brewed a pot of coffee. 2 mugs, as always. Habit. I poured one for myself and left the other across the table, steam curling in the light. The empty chair didn't ache anymore. It just sat there, honest and vacant, like space reserved for peace. I stepped outside to the porch, the air heavy with summer dust and honeysuckle. My neighbor's wind chime sang a lazy rhythm. Across the street, Gabe's porch light blinked twice, his quiet way of saying, "Still here." I raised my mug in a silent toast. "Still here," I whispered back. "Some victories don't roar, they just exhale." I took one last look at the house before heading in. The new lock clicked behind me with a sound I'll never forget. Firm, final, mine. And for the first time in months, I brewed another cup just because I wanted to, not because I needed to stay awake. It was August 1st, a Thursday morning that started too quiet. The mail slot clattered once, then went still. When I opened the door, a small padded envelope sat on the doormat, plain, unmarked, almost shy. For a moment I thought it was another trap. I turned it over, checked for labels, stamps, fingerprints of deceit, nothing. I carried it inside, set it on the table that had seen everything: betrayal, strategy, vindication. The coffee was still brewing when I tore the flap. Inside was the ceramic mug from the Father's Day box, glued back together, the crack sealed with gold lacquer like someone had tried to repair the damage and make it precious again. Underneath, a folded note in Lena's handwriting. "You were right about Sundays. No apology, no explanation, just that line." But it was enough. I set the mug beside the framed ComEd bill, 11844 July 3rd, and let them sit together. One proof of deceit, one proof of endurance. Both now artifacts of survival. Outside, a summer breeze rattled the screen door. I turned. The smart lock, my code, my terms, and stepped into the kitchen I built in 1998. The same cabinets I'd planned by hand. The same counters I'd stained with coffee rings and years. The oven timer dinged right then, crisp and small, like a gavel announcing peace instead of punishment. I leaned against the counter, listening to the sound of ordinary life. Fridge. Coffee drip, wind brushing the window. Those sounds used to be background noise. Now they felt like forgiveness. Marielle's voice drifted back from memory. "Don't open it. Can't you see?" She was half right. Some things you shouldn't open because they're poison. Others you open because you need to see what's inside, even if it burns a little. I turned the mug in my hands. The gold seam glinted in the morning light. Maybe that's what time does. It doesn't erase cracks. It outlines them in something honest. At noon, I walked out to the porch. The brown lines screeched faintly in the distance, same rhythm as always. Across the street, Gabe was trimming his hedge. He looked up, waved once, like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. I waved back, then looked at the plaque hanging by my door. This house wasn't given, it was kept. The letters caught the sun, each word carved deep enough to last. Longer than apology, longer than bloodlines. I thought about Lena as a child, about how proud she'd been the first time she hammered a nail straight. Maybe this was her crooked one, the mistake she needed to make to learn what foundation really means. I took a sip of coffee, stared down at the mug, and whispered, "I forgive you, kid. Just don't mail me any more lessons." Then I stepped back inside, locked the door, and looked around at the home that had survived the paperwork war. The motion binder sat on a shelf marked family, its blue tab catching the light. I ran my finger along it, feeling the ridge of the label. "You didn't lose me," I said softly, the words landing in the quiet like the final nail of a long build. "You gave me away. I just walked back." The house seemed to exhale with me, wood creaking, pipes sighing, air settling. For the first time in years, it sounded alive again. When I sat down at the table, the patched mug beside me, I realized something strange. Revenge hadn't hollowed me out. It had built me back up. Every receipt, every affidavit, every sleepless night, they weren't rage, they were reconstruction. Outside, the brown line rumbled by once more, and I whispered the truth I'd earned. Justice doesn't echo, it roots. And with that, I took another sip, warm and steady, as the house kept breathing with me. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're listening at night, set your thermostat the way you like it. No one else gets a vote.